Imagine ancient Rome under siege, its walls crumbling, its legions scattered, and standing at the city's final threshold, not a seasoned general commanding thousands, not an immortal warrior from legend, but a man who cannot see a single arrow fly. This is the story history buried, the tale of Marcus Velius, a blind archer who became Rome's last line of defense at the Serpent Gate, a soldier who mastered what should have been impossible, a defender who turned disability into his deadliest weapon. The year is 376 CE. The Roman Empire is fracturing. Gothic tribes surge across the frontiers like a winter flood, and at the eastern approach to Rome itself stands the Porta Serpentis, the Serpent Gate, so named for the winding road that coils toward it through the hills. It's a minor entrance, lightly defended, considered strategically insignificant. But war has a way of making the insignificant suddenly vital. Marcus Velius wasn't born blind. He was born a soldier. The son of a Fletcher, he grew up with wood and feather and string as his first language. By 15, he could split an apple at 100 paces. By 20, he was the finest archer in the Legio IV Flavia Felix. His eyes were his gift, sharp as an eagle's, steady as stone. Then came the siege of Thessalonica. A flaming projectile struck the rampart beside him. The explosion of Greek fire turned day into a white-hot nightmare. When Marcus woke 3 days later in the camp hospital, the world had become an ocean of darkness. The flames had taken his eyes, but left him alive. Some would call that mercy. Marcus called it a curse. The legion released him with honor and a small pension. Return to Rome, they said. Find peace in the capital. But what peace could a soldier find when the only thing he'd ever mastered was now impossible? What does an archer do when he cannot see his target? For months, Marcus wandered Rome like a ghost. He knew every street, every corner of the city from his childhood, yet now it felt alien, hostile. He counted steps obsessively, memorized the sound of different fountains, learned to recognize shopkeepers by the rhythm of their speech. But inside, he was dying, not from his wounds, from purposelessness. Then came the day that changed everything. He was crossing the Forum when he heard it, a street performer, a blind musician playing a lyre with such precision that crowds stopped mid-stride to listen. Marcus approached, drawn by something he couldn't name. When the music ended, he asked the musician a single question. "How do you know where your fingers should fall when you cannot see the strings?" The old man smiled. "I see with my hands. I hear the space between the notes. The lyre and I are one instrument now. I know its voice better than my own." He paused, tilting his head toward Marcus. "You were a soldier. I can hear it in how you stand. What did you do before darkness found you?" "I was an archer." "Then you already know the answer. The bow remembers, even if your eyes forget." Those words haunted Marcus for weeks. The bow remembers. Could it be true? Could muscle and memory and instinct replace sight? He had to know. He returned to his father's old workshop, now run by his younger brother, and requested something unusual, a bow modified to his new reality. Lighter, shorter, with notches carved into the grip at precise intervals so his fingers could find their position by touch alone. Arrows fletched with feathers that whistled distinctly when they flew, giving him auditory feedback. Then Marcus began the most grueling training of his life. He started in total silence, in the darkness that was now his permanent companion. He would draw and release 100 times, feeling for the perfect anchor point at his jaw, the precise angle of his elbow, the tension in his shoulders. Every muscle became a measurement, every breath a calculation. He wasn't aiming, he was becoming the arrow itself. Next came sound.
He hung bells from posts at varying distances in an abandoned courtyard. Draw, listen, adjust for the wind he could feel on his skin, release. The sound of arrows striking wood became his new sight. Miss, adjust, again, again, again. Weeks became months. Marcus learned to read the air like a map. Warm currents meant rising thermals that would lift his arrow. Cold pockets would drop it. He learned that different surfaces reflected sound differently, creating an auditory landscape. Stone walls gave sharp echoes, wooden structures absorbed and muffled. Human bodies, packed together in formation, created a dense, specific resonance. He practiced in rain, learning how water changed the weight of his bowstring. He practiced in wind, understanding how gusts spoke before they struck. He became attuned to vibrations through the ground, the tremor of approaching footsteps, the rhythm distinguishing between friend and foe. But his most revolutionary adaptation was psychological. Marcus realized something other archers never considered. Hesitation comes from sight. When you see the human face of your enemy, you pause. When you watch your arrow's flight, you doubt. Marcus had neither burden. He existed in a pure state of intention and execution. Draw, calculate, release. The target was never a person, it was a sound, a breath, a disturbance in the air. After a year of obsessive training, Marcus did something unprecedented. He requested reinstatement to active duty. The military tribunal laughed. A blind archer? Preposterous, dangerous. He would endanger his unit. But Marcus demanded one chance, a demonstration. They agreed, expecting entertainment. Marcus stood before a row of straw targets while 5 officers watched with barely concealed amusement. They called out positions: left, center, far right. Marcus drew and fired without hesitation. Every arrow found its mark. The officers stopped smiling. "Luck," one muttered. "Then move the targets while I shoot," Marcus replied. They did. Servants repositioned the targets every few seconds, scraping them across gravel to give Marcus sound to track. He fired 12 arrows in rapid succession, 12 strikes. The tribunal was silent. Finally, the eldest officer spoke. "Your skill is undeniable, but we cannot assign you to a legion, the liability. Then assign me to the Serpent Gate, a minor post, minimal garrison. If I fail, you've lost nothing. If I succeed, Rome gains a defender who never sleeps, never tires of watching, and never loses sight in darkness, because I have no sight to lose."
The logic was strange, but sound. Marcus was assigned to the Serpent Gate with a skeleton crew of 12 men, old veterans, young recruits deemed unfit for frontline service, and one grizzled centurion named Caius Maro, who'd lost his right hand at Adrianople and now commanded through reputation alone. For 3 years, nothing happened. Marcus drilled constantly, memorizing every stone of the gate, every angle of approach. He could navigate the entire structure blindfolded, which was, of course, every moment of his existence. The other soldiers grew to trust him, even rely on him. He could hear supply wagons approaching long before the watchmen spotted them. He could predict weather changes by subtle shifts in air pressure and bird behavior. Marcus had found something he thought he'd lost forever: purpose, peace even. The Serpent Gate became his world, and he knew every breath of it. Then, in the autumn of 379 CE, the world came to the Serpent Gate. Gothic raiders, emboldened by victories in the provinces, decided to attempt the unthinkable, a direct strike on Rome itself. But they were cunning. They knew the main gates were impregnable, watched by full legions. So they studied the approaches and identified what Roman military planners had overlooked: the Serpent Gate. Lightly defended,
accessible through the hill country. If they could breach it swiftly and silently, they could pour into the city before reinforcements arrived. They attacked in the deepest part of night, 300 warriors moving in near total silence. But Marcus heard them. He woke in his chamber to a sound that didn't belong, the whisper of leather against stone, the controlled breathing of men trying to move quietly. He counted heartbeats, calculated distances, then he moved. "Caius," he said, shaking the centurion awake, "they're coming, 300, maybe more, from the eastern approach." Caius bolted upright. "You're certain?" "I'm blind, not deaf. They'll reach the gate in 10 minutes. The centurion didn't hesitate. He'd seen Marcus work. "Rouse the men, battle stations." 12 defenders against 300. The mathematics were brutal, but Marcus had spent 3 years preparing for exactly this impossibility. The Goths approached in a wedge formation, siege ladders ready, expecting to find sleeping sentries. Instead, they found Marcus Velius standing atop the gate tower, bow in hand, his face turned toward sounds only he could distinguish. The first Gothic warrior to mount a ladder never reached the top. Marcus's arrow took him through the throat, a shot fired based solely on the scrape of wood against stone and the man's labored breathing. The body fell, creating confusion below. "Impossible!" someone shouted in Gothic. "How did he see in this darkness?" They didn't understand. Darkness was Marcus's advantage. While they fumbled with torches and strained their eyes, he existed in a world of pure sound and sensation. Every footfall was a beacon, every whispered command a target. Arrow after arrow flew from his bow with mechanical precision. He didn't aim, he listened, calculated, and released. A warrior 20 paces left, adjusting his helmet. An officer 30 paces forward, rallying his men. A ladder-bearer approaching from the right flank. Each sound signature became a death sentence.
The 11 other defenders fought desperately at the gate itself, holding back the initial assault. But it was Marcus who broke the Gothic momentum. He was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost archer who struck from angles that should have been impossible. The Goths had never encountered anything like this. In their culture, warriors faced each other, read each other's eyes, measured courage in visible terms. This was something else, an invisible force that killed without prejudice, without warning, without ever missing. "Fall back!" their chieftain finally screamed. "It's sorcery! The gate is cursed!" But Marcus heard the retreat forming, heard the specific cadence of withdrawal. He knew they would regroup and attack again, and next time they'd be prepared for an archer in the dark. "Caius," he called down, "they'll return. We need fire." The centurion understood immediately. They lit braziers along the ramparts, creating pockets of heat that Marcus could sense, using them as reference points for triangulation. When the Goths attacked again an hour later, they found their darkness advantage neutralized. Marcus used the heat signatures from their torches, the sound of their war cries, even the smell of their leather armor, to construct a complete sensory map of the battlefield. For 6 hours the battle raged. The 12 defenders held, but barely. Marcus's fingers bled from the bowstring, his shoulders screamed from the constant draw and release. He'd fired over 200 arrows, and his calculations told him he'd struck at least 70 targets, a success rate that would have been remarkable for a sighted archer in daylight, let alone a blind man in darkness. As dawn approached, the Gothic chieftain made his final gambit. He ordered a full assault, every remaining warrior, simultaneously from all sides. It was all or nothing. Marcus heard it coming like a tidal wave of sound. There were too many. Even he couldn't track them all. The gate would fall. Unless he changed everything. "Caius," Marcus said, his voice eerily calm, "open the gate." "What? Have you lost your mind?" "Trust me. Open it just enough for 5 men to pass through, then seal it behind me." The centurion's face went white. "Marcus, that's suicide." "No," the blind archer said, notching an arrow. "It's the only angle they won't expect.
I need to be among them, not above them. I need to hear them from the inside. What Marcus proposed was madness, but Caius had learned to trust this blind man's understanding of battle. He gave the order. The gate cracked open. Marcus slipped through into the enemy formation like a ghost entering a nightmare. The Goths didn't see him at first. Their eyes were on the gate, waiting for it to open wider, for more defenders to emerge. By the time they realized a single man had walked into their midst, Marcus had already fired 6 arrows at point-blank range. He moved through them like water, his feet reading the ground, his ears tracking every warrior within 30 paces. He wasn't fighting, he was conducting a symphony of death. Draw, pivot, release. Draw, duck, release. The Goths swung weapons at shadows while Marcus existed in the spaces between their intentions. He knew when they would swing before they did. The intake of breath, the shift of weight, the grunt of effort all came before the blow. He was always one heartbeat ahead, always moving through gaps that hadn't formed yet, but would by the time he arrived. For 10 impossible minutes, Marcus Velius danced alone in an army of enemies. His arrows found throats and eyes and hearts with surgical precision. His movements were so unpredictable, so contrary to combat logic, that the Goths couldn't coordinate against him. How do you surround a man who doesn't move like a man, who seems to anticipate every attack without seeing it coming? The Gothic chieftain finally understood what he faced. Not a soldier, but something evolved beyond ordinary combat. A warrior who had transcended the limitations that defined all others. "Retreat!" the Gothic chieftain screamed. "Retreat now!" The Goths broke. 300 warriors bled from 12 defenders and 1 blind archer who had walked into their midst and emerged untouched. They would tell stories of that night for generations, of the demon archer at the Serpent Gate who could kill what he could not see, who moved like wind and struck like lightning. When the sun rose fully, Marcus stood at the gate, his bow lowered, his chest heaving. 73 Gothic bodies lay in the killing ground. Not a single Roman defender had fallen.
Caius approached, his face a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Marcus, what you did? I've fought in 20 campaigns and I've never—" "I just defended the gate," Marcus said quietly, "as I was assigned to do." But word spread. Within days, Rome knew the story. Within weeks, the Senate itself summoned Marcus Velius to explain how a blind man had defeated an army. He stood before them, uncomfortable in the marble halls, and gave the only answer he had. "I didn't defeat them despite my blindness. I defeated them because of it. They saw with their eyes and were blinded by darkness. I see with everything else, and darkness holds no power over me." The Senate offered him command of a full cohort, riches, land. He refused it all. He asked only to return to the Serpent Gate, to the 12 men who had stood with him, to the stones he knew like his own heartbeat. And there he remained for the rest of his service, training others in his methods, teaching them to see beyond sight. Some learned, most couldn't. The mental discipline required was too demanding, the surrender of visual instinct too difficult. But Marcus didn't need others to master it. He had become something unique, a defender who turned limitation into legend. He served at the Serpent Gate for another 15 years. It was never attacked again. His mere presence was enough. Stories had spread among the tribes. Do not approach the Eastern Gate. A demon lives there, a sorcerer who kills from shadows. Leave that gate alone. That is the story of Marcus Velius, the blind archer who defended Rome's gates, the forgotten soldier who saw farther than anyone. And his message echoes across the centuries to us. Your greatest limitation might be hiding your greatest strength. The question is, do you have the courage to find it?